and welcome to another episode of Cinema Sleuths. I am Luke Deckard.
And I am Matthew Booth.
What are we investigating this week?
Well, today we're looking at 2026, The Rip, which is why that was a good introductory pun. Starring Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, and written and directed by Joe Carnahan. And the IMDb logline is: a group of Miami cops discovers a stash of millions in cash, leading to distrust as outsiders learn about the huge seizure, making them question who to rely on.
Indeed. The latest.
That's The Rip.
That is The Rip. The latest Netflix release. I'm saying the latest because at the time of recording it's just come out, but at the time of release this will be probably quite old. It's a January release. We talked about it back in 2025 as, part of the upcoming, neo-noir-ish or noir-adjacent films that were coming out, and wanted to see what it was like. But we thought we would bring another cinematic sleuth with us for this little adventure. And we have Steve Hunt from the boxing movie podcast, Desert Island Fights. Fights, right?
That's right, yeah.
Okay, I'll cut that out. Desert Island Fights, you're also an author. You've been on with us before, Steve, and I'm glad you could come back and talk about The Rip with us.
Yeah, me too. Good to have you, Steve.
Thank you. I'm very... it's an honour. It's an honour to be asked back. I really enjoyed our last conversation, and I'm really looking forward to hearing your views on The Rip.
Buckle up. Well, all right. Let's go in with our initial thoughts. I sat down last night and watched it with my wife. Steve, you're the guest cinematic sleuth. What were your initial thoughts, without going into necessarily spoilers or whatever? What was the overall impression that The Rip left on you?
I enjoyed it. I mean, I've watched it twice now. I watched it pretty much when it first came out, and I watched it again yesterday just in preparation for this. I didn't think when I watched it the first time that it was going to be a film that would warrant a second viewing, but I have to say, even watching it yesterday, I did enjoy it, and there was things that I picked up on that I hadn't seen before, hadn't picked up on the first time round, in terms of working out where the plot was going. It still feels a bit weird that this is the type of film that you're watching straight onto Netflix. I'm sure we'll talk about that, rather than, Ben Affleck and Matt Damon have been such big stars for so long that you think their next big release is going to be at the cinema and you're going to have the cinema experience. And it feels a bit weird that you're getting that on Netflix. But I enjoyed it. It's not the type of film that I would probably watch again if it wasn't for the sake of revisiting it for this podcast. But it probably is what it's meant to be for Netflix. It's got that drawing power to get people to watch it once, and then ultimately, as you just said, by the time people listen to this, it'll have disappeared, really, because there'll be so much new stuff. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. It's nothing wrong with it at all.
I like that. By the time this episode comes out, everyone is going to be like, "What is The Rip? What the hell are they talking about?" And that is streaming in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Matt, what was your takeaway?
A bit like Steve, really. I sat and you, Luke, because I sat down last night to watch this with my wife, and I have to say,
rather than Luke's wife.
I didn't watch it with Luke's wife. No. I don't think Luke's wife would put up with me.
Just clarifying, it was your wife.
There are times when my wife doesn't put up with me. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
There you go. And we sat down to watch it. I had no expectations, I have to say. I didn't go in thinking this is going to be amazing. I went in thinking this is Netflix.
Yeah.
So let's just see what we get, because we've covered a few Netflix films on this channel which have really been appalling. But I have to say, I did enjoy it. Overall, I did enjoy it. But it was pure popcorn fodder for me. I don't think I'll watch it again, I have to say. But for the hour and 50 odd minutes, maybe it could have been an hour and a half, we'll get into that, I found myself involved in it, and it passed a Friday evening fairly, and overall enjoyably. That's my overall sort of take of it. But there are things to say about it, but that's my overall takeaway.
Fair enough. I turned to my wife about halfway through, and I was like, you know what? The way that I would describe this film is that it is a basic bitch film. I just didn't enjoy it. To me, it summed up everything that is wrong with streaming. It summed up everything that is wrong with Netflix movies. And I found myself just getting so irritated because I could call every single thing that was going to happen. Like I knew where it was going, how it was being played. There was no twists or reveals that actually paid off because I saw them coming a million miles away. Now, I guess in its defense, it also had a weird sort of like Michael Bay-esque vibe to it, almost like it was like a discarded Michael Bay film from like 1998 that just, a first draft or something. But I just didn't find myself wrapped up in it very much. I found myself getting just like, well, okay, this is what's going to happen, isn't it? Okay, yeah, this is what does happen. Now, I love Matt Damon. I love Ben Affleck. I think they're both great actors. I like Sasha Calle. I think those three put on a good performance. I like Kyle Chandler. He did a good performance, but his character is an NPC. He's just sort of there. But like, overall, I thought this is exactly what I would expect from Netflix, and that's exactly why I don't like it. But I'll go into I'll go into detail on that a little bit later. But my overall impression was like, this is typical Netflix spoon feeding its audience who are too busy watching, scrolling Twitter or Instagram while they're watching the film.
That was one of my issues, that they repeat the basic plot about 50 times throughout this dialogue.
Yeah. And Matt Damon has said that.
I think I was just going to say, Steve, I think Matt Damon has said in an interview that Netflix said to him that's what the script needs to do because people are also scrolling on their phones.
Yeah, and
I hate that because when I watch a film, I want to be in the film, and you can't scroll social media and watch a film at the same time. I don't think if you're going to do justice to either one of them.
Yeah, I actually wanted to talk about that. So do we jump ahead and talk about that now, or do we brush through the kind of production side of things? What do you guys want to do?
We might as well. I'd say let's
talk about it now.
Let's do it now. All right. Yeah. The gloves are off. It's true. I was reading that interview, and there was a part of me that I found it very interesting that both Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, prior to the film's release, were on all of these podcasts doing all of these interviews, basically saying Netflix sucks at the way they want you to write, the way they want their films written. And I don't know if it was I don't know if they were trying to warn people in advance about what to expect with this film, because they said somewhere that like this is a very like Netflix film. This is a very streaming film, and they mentioned that the repetitive dialogue that recovers the same ground and really does spoon feed the audience, and I think that has annoyed me with streaming for years. This sort of talking down to your audience, and this sort of enabling of it's okay to just view this stuff as disposable, view this art as disposable, that you don't need to pay attention. It doesn't need to make you think. It doesn't need to be anything other than background noise, which is why I'm so distraught's an extreme word, so uneasy about the WB merger, because I'm like, I do not trust Netflix to take on the WB and produce WB level films. I mean, having said that, The Flash was also a WB film, and that was dog poop. But you know what I mean? Like the WB have a long history of incredible films, that build up their studio. There is nothing on Netflix that I think, oh my gosh, I cannot wait to rewatch this Netflix thing. I don't rewatch anything that is a Netflix original.
This film, though, has had generally positive reviews.
It has, and it shocks me.
Well, that thing I read that about Matt Damon saying that Netflix, they want the plot to be kind of restated to the viewers at several times during the film. I have to say, I didn't find that a problem or didn't find that particularly noticeable. And I did think that there are intricacies in the plot of that film that I didn't spot the first time round that you only pick up on a second viewing. So that doesn't count to me as spoon feeding.
Well, I'll give you an example. At one point, when all the gang are outside sitting down after they've all been interrogated and stuff, I think, what is it? It's either Matt Damon or Ben Affleck's character says something about a stash house. And one of the main characters says, "What's a stash house? Yeah. What the fuck? Like, I'm sorry, but what the flying fuck is that?" Like, you, as a, whatever your role is, detective, whatever the heck, should know, you would know. I knew what it was. As an audience member, I understood the reference of come on, like that was a spoon feeding moment. And then there was another moment later on that now has escaped my mind. But it was literally they said the thing.
But that's not a plot point, is it? That's not a plot point. That is telling the audience what something is. I agree with you that it is spoon feeding the audience, but it's not that thing about you got to let.
Well, it is a plot point because they're like, oh, we got to go to this stash house. What's a stash house? What do you mean what's a stash house? We got to go to our plot point, which is the stash house. We got to explain to how stupid do you think your audience is? That's what annoyed me about it.
You have to explain to the audience what the rip is, because I didn't know what a rip was.
See, I don't necessarily mind that, because that is I don't mind like that kind of terminology that might be specific to an American audience or a geographical audience. I don't mind a little bit of that going on, but there's a way to do it that isn't spoon feeding. Even to say stash house, even to say stash. There's a stash house. We think they probably got there's a tip that there's a bunch of money there. That is all you know. Okay, all right, it's a stash house. They're stashing money there.
Yeah, I'll just jump in it because I do agree with Luke about the stash house thing, and I think the way of doing that, a better written script, for want of a better phrase, would have had some dialogue between those cops where they know what they're talking about, but it also explains to the audience what it is without it actually being that direct question. And as Luke was sort of riffing them with an example, it would have been, something like, how many stash houses are we going to have to sort of go to all this? There would have been some conversation that would have been natural to the characters, but would have also told me as a closet, a sort of privileged middle-aged man at home what a stash house was.
Yes.
And equally, I didn't know what a rip was. I didn't know why this film was called The Rip. I didn't look into it because I was hoping the film would explain it to me. And yes, it does. And that does need explaining. So there are two things going on here. I think there are certain things that do need explaining. There are certain things that do need not so much spoon feeding, but a more clearer explanation, like the title. But there are things that it should always be done in the way that the characters would speak to themselves, because the characters know, and a decent script or a decent novel, decent story, whatever, will tell the reader or the audience the information it needs. It's the old George Lucas exposition thing of that's too big to be a space station. They all know that, but we don't. And that's clunky exposition. And there is some of that in this.
I remember the other thing. It is when Roe is outside guarding, outside watching for people who are meant to come and assault them at the house where the rip is. And I can't remember. It's Ben Affleck or something like that who comes out, and he says, where are all the people? Where are all the cars? Where are Oh, well, I hear that they, the cartel are buying up whole neighborhoods. And then like instantly that is the thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, you set something up to then instantly be like, that is the thing that is going on right now. That I'm like, can you not dial it back a little bit to sort of like lead us into this? So you're telling me that Sasha Callie is the only person who lives on this street? Like, and it's like you should know this. Then I feel like you should have some awareness sooner than just in that moment to then instantly pay it off. So that's some of the other stuff I just felt was a bit. It's that streamy clunkiness that like
it's clunky. Yeah, it's clunky.
We can't expect the audience to remember this stuff, so we're going to say it now, follow through with it now, and then move on, and it's never really a thing again. The other thing that they mentioned was this sort of like early action hook stuff. I don't know about you guys, but the opening of this film was some of the worst editing that I have seen in a long time. The kind of smash to Matt Damon talking to the guy from The Dark Knight, I can't remember his name. That guy.
Yeah, he's called Nestor Carbonell.
Yes, that guy. He was there for 1 second and then gone for the rest of the film.
Yeah, wasted.
Yes, because he's a really good actor. He was in Heroes, I think, as well.
Yeah, he's in Bates Motel. He's the sheriff in Bates Motel, and he's absolutely superb. One of the best things in it.
I've never watched Bates Motel. Anyway, that's a side tangent.
Yeah,
we'll keep the side tangents to a minimum. What was I saying? Yeah, okay. The editing of that, because it was like Matt Damon is talking, and then suddenly we're cut between, a character the female character who we don't know at that point in time necessarily who or what she is, but then you find out that it's Jackie. Her name is Jackie Velez, and then she's being chased, and then she's shot, and then that's being cut in between these half bits of conversation with Matt Damon and the captain guy, and then there's more cuts between the rest of the Matt Damon's crew being interviewed about this thing, and I just felt like, they're saying how they want this sort of early action hook in their films. Like it's almost like they were trying to have their cake and eat it too. By we're going to have this big action thing at the beginning, but then at the same time we're going to try and offset it with the important like setup stuff that you need. And to me, it felt like I was just like a pinball in a pinball machine, just bouncing back and forth between all these things, and it just didn't feel cohesive enough, and everything felt a little bit flat and a little bit cliched as well. I don't know. That opening really, that also irritated me because it felt like it just lent into that Netflix like assembly line attitude of how they do their films, of like, this is how you have to start it. You have to repeat your stuff all the time. We're never going to go really deep with anything because Matt Damon's character has a son who's died of cancer. That had like no bearing on anything. I don't know.
I agree with some, but not all of that. Because I didn't feel. Let's start with what I don't agree. I don't agree about the opening as such, because I didn't feel that. What I felt, my overriding sense of that was the word you used of cliche, because I've seen that before, where one character asks another character a question,
and
that then cuts to a different interview where the question is answered by a different character. And the first time you see it, you think, wow, that is really good. But the first time I saw it was probably like in 1996 or something, and you think, not this again. I'd almost rather have Matt Damon and Nestor Carbonell just talking over that table.
Yes.
And that's one of the all-encompassing feelings I had about this film. I couldn't help thinking it would be a far better stage play than film, because when you've got that office in the cop station with two really good actors, that's compelling enough for me. Then you're in the basement of the cartel house with all the relationships going on. That's really good for me. I didn't need the explosions, the car chases, and the guns, quite frankly. And I think as a much more static piece, this would have been, or had the potential to be, quite good, and quite compelling, because the acting chops are here. There's no doubt about the acting chops that could pull that off. But I didn't feel like a ping pong ball, whatever pinball.
Pinball, yeah.
But I did think, I've seen this before. Seen all this before, and that's that was my take from the opening. I just thought, well, just let them do what they've got to do and get us moving, you know. What, Steve? What's your take on the opening?
Well, for one thing, when I read that bit about Netflix wanting a big opening, I didn't feel like that woman dying, if that's not too much of a spoiler, which it kind of is.
Yeah, we can spoiler away. Yeah.
Spoiler away, yeah.
I didn't really feel like that's a huge set piece opening anyway. And I also felt like, okay, when they're cutting back from one to the other, like Matt said, I've seen that before, but I understand why people do it. But it also didn't tally for me with this idea that we know that Netflix viewers aren't going to be really paying attention, so we need to make everything really straightforward for them. Because if you didn't follow what was going on there, you could easily lose track of what was going on. So I didn't really have a problem with it. There's other things I do have problems with, but I didn't really have a problem with that, I would say.
Yeah. In fact, I was sort of thinking, this is a change from all the Netflix films that we've watched. What's the one with the woman who goes out and gets the rent for the house, Luke? What's that one called?
What, Night Always
Comes?
Yeah.
Night Always Comes, that one. And the one with Mark Wahlberg,
Play Dirty, but that's Amazon.
Yeah,
it's Prime.
Play Dirty. So, streaming service, like that, they're all the same to me. but I thought, now this is starting off with a lot of talking. And a lot of talking between some really good actors. This might be quite different, and so my only issue was that cliched editing. But I thought we're going to get something a bit more in depth here, maybe. And then it starts,
Yeah. Well, this is what I mean by that opening scene. It's not what is happening. That's the problem per se. It's the editing of it that is the problem. It is. Matt Damon is talking about something, and then suddenly you're thrown into this bit where we're watching Jackie's character be, racing down the street and being followed, and then we're thrown back to a Matt Damon scene, and we're thrown to a Ben Affleck scene. We're thrown to all these different scenes.
Yeah,
and I'm just like, the editing of this, the kind of the visual storytelling of what you're trying to accomplish, I don't think is well executed. I think
is that a Netflix issue?
Given what we've experienced with some of their other stuff, I'm going to say it's not solely a Netflix issue, but like I said, it has been a very long time since I've legitimately enjoyed a Netflix original.
I think it's a Netflix issue in the sense that that's obviously how they want things to go.
Yes.
And so they sort of say, like the head of a corporation saying to the shop floor workers, this is how you've got to do your job.
Like, I could see Ben Affleck and maybe even the director is saying, okay, we'll open up with this conversation or whatever, or we'll open up with the action scene, and then someone being like, well, Netflix executive saying, actually, why don't you splice it between the things? Because it's the splicing that doesn't work. You kind of need one or the other. Like, if you wanted to open up with Jackie being followed and getting shot and sending off that message, that's fine, because then the message gets picked up by Ben Affleck, or not by Matt Damon's character, and then your plot is rolling. Yeah. Like that to me would have been a more smooth transition from A to B than this sort of, because the other problem that I had with that is they use this moment to start introducing all the characters, and therefore you spend the whole film not really relating to, understanding, or caring about the rest of the cast. So because you're introduced to Stephen Yen's Mike Rowe, Tanya Taylor's Numa, what's the other one?
Salazar.
Yeah, Catalina Morno's Salazar. So you're introduced all these characters in this interview scene moment, but in the way, you have the interview scene at the very beginning of, say, like Blade Runner, like doing the Voight Comp test, you don't get anything personality-wise, depth-wise, as to who these people are, because you're too busy thinking, okay, what, this connects to the woman who died. How does it connect to the woman who died? Now we're thrown back to Ben Affleck. Now we're thrown back to Matt Damon. Now Ben Affleck is fighting the guy. Oh, it's the guy's brother. You know, you're just like, you know, it's the editing of it. It's not what is happening that is, like I said, it's the editing of it for me that I just thought, what are you doing?
Yeah, I do agree with that. I think because I certainly agree that if you started it just with the murder and sending the text and him receiving the text, and your plot is running, then that is certainly a viable way to go. Absolutely. Yeah. Equally, if you don't show me the murder and I don't know anything about that, and you've got this conversation going on between two cops and I don't know what it's about, but I'm then intrigued about what it's about because I don't know and I'm waiting for them to explain it to me. Then I see the text and I say, what's all this about? And at the end, it becomes clear that she sent it. I think that is also a viable way to go. Yeah, mashing them together does cause an issue. And I have a big issue with the fact that I didn't know who any of these people were. And I only can tell you the name of these characters because I've got the cast list in front of me.
Yeah.
Same.
That's the only way I can tell you that she was called Salazar, because I have no idea who any of these people are.
Yeah.
I know who Matt Damon and Ben Affleck are because
it's Ben Affleck and Matt Damon.
There's some time spent telling me who they are, you know, as characters. But I have no idea who the others are, apart from Desi, whose name is kept repeated over and over and over again. That's the only other character name I couldn't even tell you what Matt Damon, without looking, and I'm not going to look, I can't tell you what Matt Damon's character's called. No. To me,
I can only because I thought they were so stereotypical 90s names. Matt Damon was named Dane, and Ben Affleck was named was it? Oh, maybe I gotta look now. It was JD. It was JD.
Yeah,
Dane and JD.
These aren't people to me. These were stock characters.
And unfortunately, that issue, that I would agree with that entirely, that you don't know about who these people are and don't know what their names are, and it's easy to get these people mixed up. But unfortunately, it's even more of a problem with the female characters, apart from Desi. The two female cops are neither here nor there, are they?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It was very frustrating, particularly with Salazar. I guess once they get to the house, and I'm going to caveat this with a comment about another kind of Netflix dig. Cinematography wise, like I said, this also felt like a Michael Bay reject film. When they all pull out with all of their nice cars zooming along the streets in this perfect row, I like this is Transformers. This is 2007's Transformers. This is Michael Bay. Like, this is exactly how he shoots all of this stuff. You look like you're in a convoy. You look obvious. Like, this isn't natural. This doesn't feel, you know, you think it's a badass scene, and yeah, all your cars look really cool. But like, I was like, I've seen this before. Like, try Netflix. Like back in the day, Netflix did try, and they did do things that were interesting. House of Cards is genuinely, the first 2 seasons are perfect. They are perfect television, two perfect series. There are other things that, I think the first season of Stranger Things, very, very good. But once you get outside of that, I'm just like, you watch things like The Gray Man or things like, and you're just like, oh my God, you aren't doing anything. You're literally just doing straight to DVD schlock here.
Yeah, but let's remember, Joe Carnahan is the director. Okay.
Yes.
Look at his body of work.
Oh, I know.
Look at his body of work, and that's not Netflix's fault, is it? If someone,
well, it is because they chose him.
No, but I'm talking about his body of work historically. If some of his work looks like a poor man's Michael Bay, that's not Netflix's fault. That's because he's responsible for films like Smoking Aces and the A-Team and something called Karate Raider and Bad Boys for Life, which you could probably make those criticisms.
The titles are enough.
You could make those criticisms of those films, and that's not a Netflix issue. That is just that filmmaker makes films that look like that.
Yes and no. Yes and no. I agree, but I agree. Like, 85% with that.
And also, what type of film are they trying to make? Maybe they're trying to make. Maybe part of them are trying to make a film that looks a bit like Michael Bay.
Well, I think
that's not just a Netflix film thing either. Maybe that's what Joe Carnahan likes to make, and they all have to take some creative responsibility, don't they?
Well,
it's not just a Netflix issue. I'm not a defender of Netflix.
No, I know. It's not solely Netflix issue, but I think when you look at what Netflix repeatedly comes out with, you see a Netflix style in the way that like Marvel has its Marvel style.
Yeah.
You kind of see a Netflix style, and then if you can use The Gray Man as an example, and that is with Ryan Gosling, which on paper like that could have been cool, but it just wasn't. It was full of fake green screen nonsense. It was full of kind of vomity drone sweeping shots, and you get a lot of that kind of stuff here. Like with the driving scenes, like the way that shots are sort of framed they're not really interesting. It's all very basic. And again, this is I won't think just at Netflix, but this is also a streaming problem. Generally, everything looks like it's meant to be a film. Nothing looks real. So I was using the car example to kind of be an imitation of like a Michael Bay. But then when you get to when you're in the police station or when you're in the house where the rip is taking place, it looks like a film set. It doesn't look like this is a real place. This is really a dump. It looks like a fake dump. In the way that you can watch something like the show Reacher over on Prime Video, and all of that just looks so manicured that even when you're in a dumpy barn, it feels like a dumpy barn set, not a real dumpy barn. And I feel this a lot with streaming, particularly. There's this sort of a glossy sheen to even the murkiest bits of stuff. So like if we like take, for example, the gluttony scene in Seven, or just Seven as a whole, anywhere that they go feels legitimately grimy and dirty. This house does not feel, which is basically a derelict house, doesn't feel derelict to me. It feels like they've made it to look derelict because that's what the film set is meant to look. I
know what you mean, because I had similar Seven vibes when they were in that basement. And the lights coming through sort of slats and slim windows and all things like that. And through
the green lights that we don't know where in the world they were coming from, because when they're outside, we don't have any green lights.
That's it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I agree that there was some sort of there is a sort of film set vibe about it, and the grubbiness of that house is manufactured.
Do you think that's why you thought it would be better as a stage play? Subconsciously.
Yeah, very. Yeah. Well, it certainly contributes to that overall feeling I had.
Was that single location thing? I think
I just thought the single location. Yeah, because I didn't need the car chase at the end, really.
Yeah, because it gives.
I think it would have been equally dramatic for him to confront the villain, for them to confront the villains at the end.
Yeah,
like just in a room, and I agree about the manufactured grubbiness, because if you think back over the years, Luke, when we talked about Love Lies Bleeding, we talked about the poverty in that film, the dirtiness in that film, and same in Hell and High Water. That poverty and that grubbiness, certainly in Love Lies Bleeding, there was real sense of like dirt.
Yeah.
And that didn't feel manufactured. That felt genuine.
I felt like you were actually watching something from this like grimy 80s. It was fantastic.
Yeah, as if you had just somehow lifted the lid on someone's house and were looking in, and I didn't get that with this. I got movie set because it all looks too slick, I think is what I'm trying to say. But yeah, and I think it certainly would have been a better stage play than film for me. And I think I would have enjoyed it much more because there would have been less to throw at it. It would have been stripped down.
Yeah. Before I carry on with Steve, what's your take?
I think those criticisms are fair, but I would just say the two comparisons or the two films that you've referenced as better examples, Blade Runner and Seven, that's a very high bar. If we'd never had streaming, even now cinema is littered with throwaway films that are made like this. If we'd seen this film in the cinema, I wouldn't have been remotely surprised, and we would have had similar criticisms, but we couldn't have blamed it on Netflix. That would only be my point, really. Not every film is going to be Seven, is it? Not every film is going to be.
No,
they can all aspire to that, but they're not.
Yeah, I think you're both right on this. I have to say, I think that if you take Netflix away from this, I think the product that Carnahan would have made would have been not much different. But Luke is also right to say that we've reviewed so many Netflix products that there is this trend, and they do, and this does fall into it. So I think it is a case of a director saying, "No, I think we should do this," and Netflix saying, "That's fine, but can you do that with it instead?" And you get a sort of soup, you get an alphabet soup of ideas that turns out like this,
And I think that's kind of where the Affleck and Damon comments hint at.
I think so. I think so, and I think they're right.
Yeah, I think when they're bluntly talking about these Netflix notes, and I mean, there was a huge buzz because they were saying Netflix wants people to write stories for people who aren't paying attention, and they really didn't seem cool with it. They weren't saying it in a way.
They shouldn't have signed up then, should they? They shouldn't have signed up for it.
Well, no, and I think I guess the problem that you have is Netflix is very. So to kind of backtrack on myself a little bit, Netflix still has moments of like, oh wow, that was actually pretty good. To where you're kind of like, oh, interesting. Maybe they can do something interesting. And yeah, so you're just sort of like, well, did they sign up in the hopes that they could, make something fun and interesting? And then once they got into the Netflix system, did they think that their star power would be enough to sort of push back at the Netflix beast a little bit? I don't know. But I do think, because I mean, I've known about this Netflix thing for at least for a good couple of years. People have been talking about it for ages. But it wasn't until they started saying something that it actually became like a big media thing. Which, for better or worse, I'm actually glad that they were talking about it, and that people started to sort of become more aware of the Netflix, and not just Netflix. I'm saying Netflix, but the streaming style of writing, and that is we repeat these things 50 million times because you need to write for people who are making pasta in the background. So I think I'm glad that they raised further awareness about it. I suspect that maybe they went in thinking they would be able to make something that wasn't so constrained by those kind of Netflix mandates.
I feel that they were letting people know they needed to make compromises because they were with Netflix. But I think they felt they probably pulled it off, and it's a piece of work they're probably quite proud of, bearing in mind what it is and what it's intended to be. The difference is I feel I agree with them that they did pretty much pull it off, and you don't think they pulled it off. You think those compromises have basically fucked it, excuse my language, ruined it as a movie.
Sorry, we're allowed to drop F-bombs. Someone said that it's funnier when we actually curse. So I'm like, all right, the gates are open.
Bring it on then. Yeah. I mean, I sort of my take on this is that of the Netflix films we have done, and I have seen, not necessarily for the podcast, this is at the higher end for me, I do have to say.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably because of Damon and Affleck primarily.
Yeah.
Because there has been some slop that's been dished out by Netflix. There's absolutely no doubt about that. But it's the old sort of Great Gatsby thing of you're the best of them, but really what you're saying is you're the best of a load of crap, And but I do think that I enjoyed this more than I enjoyed Night Always Comes for certain. And I think it's a better made film for certain. And I was much more involved in it than I was in that, because I didn't think people were as stupid in this as they were in that. But there are certainly things that needed ironing out, and some of the exposition, some of the fakery and all that business. But I think you're probably right, Steve. I think compromise is the word. And I think that Damon and Affleck probably felt that they did have something that they could do something with and do something good, and went to Netflix. Why they didn't go to why this wasn't a cinema release, I don't know. And they went to Netflix maybe because they thought, streaming is the new norm. And Netflix pushed back more than they expected. And so compromises had to be made. And sometimes compromises don't do justice to the original idea. I mean, that's just true. That's just a basic artistic fact, I think.
Yeah.
So I think there probably is a bit of give and take, but maybe more take than give on one side of this discussion.
Yeah.
But it's a shame, because I think I can see this in the cinema. There's no way I could see Night Always Comes in the cinema, but I do think this has a cinematic feel about it that if it had been with a studio, my main issues with it might have been ironed out.
And Affleck and Matt Damon are still big enough, surely, to draw people to the cinema. I mean, if you're talking about the different quality of Netflix films, I don't watch many of them because I don't watch this because of Ben Affleck and Matt Damon. Plus, obviously, I knew I was going to be doing this. Plus, the fact that it got pretty reasonable reviews. So often, the reviews for the Netflix films come out the week of the Netflix film, and I'm thinking, well, it might have looked okay in advance, but I'm not going to waste my time with it, even though it's on TV for free.
No, I was surprised at the reviews, I have to say, because I looked at the reviews, not in depth, but before I started watching it, just to get a vibe. And one of the reviews I read afterwards, after I'd watched it, really sums this film up for me. And it said, a movie to be enjoyed on Friday night and forgotten all about by Saturday morning.
Yeah.
And I feel a bit like that.
Yeah.
And that's what I meant when I said, for the time I was watching it on Friday night, I enjoyed it. It was good. I enjoyed it. I was there.
Yeah.
But come Saturday morning, I was thinking, who are those people?
Yeah. Yeah. And
that's when, as I've said before, what happens with me, when I'm watching it, I can think, oh yeah, that wasn't too bad at all. And then afterwards, the doubts start creeping in and the questions start coming to me. Why was he doing this?
I could just give you a couple of quotes from the Empire Review. John Nugent, I think it was in the Empire Review, called it a very sharp, very tense, and for the most part tightly constructed crime thriller from Joe Carnahan. Then he went on to say the stage is set for a good old-fashioned meaty pot boiler, a cop drama in the Sidney Lumet or Michael Mann mold.
I wouldn't compare this to Michael Mann. I'm sorry, no way.
No, fair enough.
Unless we're talking Miami Vice. Colin Farrell, Miami Vice. That's about the only.
Was that a Netflix movie? I don't think so.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. But I'm just saying but that movie looks good and looks grimy in all the right ways. It's just terrible as a Miami Vice movie. Yeah, I wouldn't compare it to those. I guess this maybe the problem is that I'm just hyper aware of certain things that general audiences aren't. But like I knew when Matt Damon was walking through the house talking on the phone what he was doing. I knew it when he in front of Sasha Calle's character. I knew that was a ruse. Like it was obvious, but they actually they played off as if it's not meant to be a ruse. They tried to play it off as not meant to be. So when you get to the denouncement where they're inside the armored truck, and you've got Ben Affleck, Matt Damon, Kyle Chandler, and the guy who plays Roe, all in there. I'm like, guys, I have been here. I got to this point about 30 minutes into the film.
No, I had this same thing. Because my example was going to be when Ben Affleck goes into the house that's got the flashing light Morse code thing.
Yes.
On his own, and then this sinister shadow with a gun comes up behind and it cuts away. I turned to my wife and I said, "That's Matt Damon."
Of course it is.
And then when they were arguing and fighting soon after that, I said to my wife,
"Yep,
this is staged."
I said the same thing.
The reason I knew this, the reason it was so clear to me, I said to her, "This is pure Agatha Christie."
Yes,
Agatha Christie does this. She says these two people hate each other, but in reality they're working together.
Yes.
And she does it all the time. And that armored truck reveal to me, and again, I think this would have been better on stage. That was they might as well have just been in a drawing room in a country house.
Yes, explaining
it, because you got all the Agatha Christie cinema touches of flashing back and seeing it from a different point of view, or a different camera angle, which Sidney Lumet did that in 1974 in Murder on the Orient Express. I've seen all that before. There's nothing flashy about that. And for sort of what was selling itself as a gritty crime thriller, I was suddenly plunged right into the cozy world of Agatha Christie for 30 minutes.
And I was going to say, if they just maybe not made it so blatantly obvious that Roe was the bad guy, because it's the thing, like, who the bad guy, you know who the mole in the team is straight away. You're like, oh, all right. So we're just waiting for everyone to catch up. Like, Matt Damon, his character is acting so suspicious that, like, it can't possibly be Matt Damon.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I agree with that. And also the trick of giving different people different values of how much the rip is.
Yes, which I knew was like, okay, that's his way of finding out. Yeah,
because the minute he said 150 to whoever it was, I mean, was it Roe?
Yeah.
The minute he says 150K, then he says to Ben Affleck 300K. And I said to my wife, that's a different figure. And I think with a bit more thinking and a bit more sort of clue plotting gumption, you could have had that trick that wasn't just the figures. That to me is like the first draft of a ruse to expose the villain. And you think, but that's too obvious. So the second run through, you come up with something else. And I think it's a really clunky device to put suspicion on one of the characters, and you can come up with much better than that.
Well, I think making it that you sort of, the film wants you to suspect Matt Damon, but obviously it's so painfully obvious that it's not, and really twists it to, like, actually you take some inspiration maybe from De Palma's Mission Impossible. Ethan Hunt isn't the bad guy, but he has to do nefarious things to expose the bad guy. Yeah. Right. And then therefore you don't know who on the team. I mean, I'm not saying recycle exactly Mission Impossible, but you could take inspiration. I'm all for inspiration. You can take inspiration from all these different things and twist them in your own way. You can take the opening editing stuff and that's been done before, but like you can do your version of it that is still like sensible, or makes sense. So you could have done something more like that, but I mean, it's just sort of like, well, instead it's like, well, he's just so obviously not the bad guy. Ben Affleck and him are clearly working together. This is all a big ruse. I know that this is, we know that Roe has been texting people about the thing, so we already know. And then there's a couple of half-staff attempts to like make Salazar out to be like maybe she's going to take some money, but doesn't, and it's just like, and then they just throw in Kyle Chandler as the other bad guy because why not? You're like, ugh.
Yeah, and that's the sort of he's an unfair villain, and by unfair I mean he doesn't play by the rules of what a whodunit demands.
Yeah,
and that's essentially what this part of the film is. It's a whodunit, who's rather than who's killed somebody, it's who's the rat.
Yeah.
And one of the rules is it's got to be someone that's been there all the way, because you can't just bring someone in at the end. And Kyle Chandler's character, I know he was there early on, but he didn't do anything. He wasn't anybody that I made an impact on me, because I was concentrating on the core group of people. And it's that core group of people that should have been the main villain. I know one of them is, but he's the sort of lackey, isn't he? And when they reintroduce Kyle, whatever his name is, Chandler, part of me did say, "Who's this?" you know. And then when he turns out to be the mastermind of it,
had you been on your phone, Matt? Had you been watching on your phone?
I was making pasta.
Better been good pasta.
No, I was watching, but I thought, I don't remember this fella.
Yeah.
You know, and then I just think it's a bit of a cop out. I think that, it's a plotting cop out. Again, I don't think whether that's Netflix's fault or whether that's Carnahan's fault or a mixture of the two. I suspect the last.
Yeah, but like the two bad cops that pull up are so obviously bad guys.
Yeah,
that you're just like, all right. So I'm just gonna wait for them to turn back up and do bad things. And that was kind of the other problem I had. It's like they're talking about all this corruption and you can't trust anyone, and it's so obviously. Everywhere they go, everyone is just so obviously corrupt and nasty, and you're just like, well, can you find some subtlety here? Can you please, when these, I told Klaus, like, okay, these two cops are going to turn up again. They're either the guys who shot the girl, or they're going to be involved in another way, and they were the ones driving the car. I was like, yeah, of course they were going to come back. Of course they were going to come back, but like. They were on, again, this is where like plot stuff doesn't make sense, because they were on duty. And then later on, they're driving the armored vehicle. I'm like, wait a minute. These two patrol cops were on duty and now they're suddenly not on duty. So how are they going to explain that to their superiors? Like, a call comes in and they're not in their car because they're driving this armored truck with all this money somewhere. Like, wait, what?
You see, I think these are questions that Netflix don't think its audience asks.
No, because they're making pasta.
They're making, and 90% of the audience won't ask it, I don't think.
No, I don't think they will either. I don't know. I wish I could have liked it. I do, because I like Ben Affleck, I like Matt Damon, I like the concept.
Yeah,
but it just feels like a discarded Michael Bay script that had maybe one draft and they just went with it as is. It just didn't feel. I'm surprised by the reviews to some degree. There is also an element of certain people, to keep their relationships happy with studios, always give positive reviews. And that is a thing that people know about. It is a thing that definitely happens. And it's because the people want the inside stuff. They want the early access. It does happen. And therefore I'm always very cynical about Rotten Tomatoes scores and stuff like that, because you can kind of see it like, all right. Every film is now suddenly 90%, where it didn't used to be that way. And so I don't know. The scores really do surprise me, because I'm like, maybe I am the odd man out. Maybe everyone else just really loved this film. I
wonder. To be honest, I wonder whether that's a sort of sign of the times, because compared to much of the other stuff that's come out, I do think this is pretty good.
Yeah, I don't think everyone else loved this film. I just don't think everyone dislikes it as much as you do, Luke. I think it is what it's advertised as. It's that Friday night entertainment, but by tomorrow we won't really remember that much about it. And that's an awful large chunk of cinema, for good or for bad. As with any type of art form, a lot of the books out there are instantly forgettable. I can't disagree particularly with a lot of what you've just said, but I didn't really find it particularly problematic. I picked up on the fact that he was mentioning different figures to different people in the team, but I didn't pick up. I have to say, I didn't pick up particularly why that was happening, and that's why it helped for me to watch it a second time. So I don't know what that says about me. But I did enjoy it. I enjoy watching Matt Damon and Ben Affleck on the screen together, even if there's some things about their characters that I don't like, and their characters are probably maybe supposed to be 15 years younger than the actors are themselves, particularly in Affleck's case. But I did think there was things that I really enjoyed. That scene in the back of that van, the way that was lit, I just thought that's It had reached its conclusion there, and that was as tense as they were going to get, given that film. And I agree with Matt that what came after, because that's probably a Netflix thing, maybe, because we could finish it here, but we need a big car chase. So I think that was absolutely completely unnecessary. And I did really feel like the female characters were sidetracked in two ways, in the sense that we didn't get to know them much, or we didn't get to know much about any of the characters really. But absolutely right at the end, they basically go, "You two stay here. We're finished with you." And then all the boys.
That's right. And all they've done all the way through is count money.
Yeah.
So there's it feels like there's
all the guys got the action, the girls got none of it.
Yeah, the girls.
There's a lot of tokenism, and then rudely discarded. But I still really enjoyed the film. I was, not really enjoyed it, but I would say it was
for what it was. You really enjoyed it.
Yeah. If I'd seen it in the cinema, I'd have come home happy.
Yeah. To take Steve's point, it did what it advertised on the tin, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it did. It did. Whether I would have enjoyed it as much if it had not been Damon and Affleck, if it had been,
I was about to ask that,
whoever else you might want to say, I don't know, because I think they make this, and it was good to see them back together.
Yes.
And I think, as far as they can, they do elevate it.
Yes.
I think Affleck was great fun in this. Great fun in this. And Damon is equally for his character. I agree with what you said earlier, Luke, about his son. That's a sort of token backstory character point, so that they can say this man is three-dimensional.
I want to caveat that with this story is very roughly based on a real story, a real event that happened in like 2016, I think.
Yeah.
And the character, the sheriff guy who Damon is based off of, did have a son named Jake who did unfortunately die of leukemia.
And I think the film is dedicated to him.
Yeah, it is dedicated to him. And I get wanting to honor that, reference that, but I also think that the way they have done it was so superficial.
Yeah,
that didn't really give it the gravitas that I think it needed.
That was my point. That was going to be my point. Yeah, I think if you're just going to pay it lip service, you're best off not doing it at all.
Yeah,
I
also have to. Let me ask you guys this as well, because when we got to the end and they were like, "Oh, this is what Jackie would have wanted." Jackie knew that this would lead to you and spirit animals and blah 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 blah. Oh, Jackie. What does confuse me even now is, did Jackie get the information from Sasha Calle's character, who then Jackie then texts Ben Affleck? Because I kept thinking, why the hell did Jackie just why did Sasha Calle's character just let everybody into the house so willy-nilly? Like, she instantly signs the thing and they just go in and do. I'm like, if you know there's money, if you know there's going, like, you wouldn't have signed the thing.
She felt like she had no choice, because if they could have gone and got a warrant anyway.
But she's a snitch.
Yeah, she's uninformed.
So who is she working for? Was she working for Jackie?
Well, that's what I took it to be.
Yeah.
That's what I took it to be.
But she never says it.
But she never says it. No,
we never get confirmation of who she was snitching for and why. Because he's just like, oh, I just knew you would do the right thing. How did you know that Jackie would do the right thing?
Now that's what I call the formulaic American cop show school of screenwriting.
Yeah.
These hour-long cop shows, like,
yes,
Law and Order and all those things. There's always, seems to me, a scene where somebody says, "I just knew you'd come through." You think, how?
Yes.
What gives you that feeling? And that's it's all a bit schmaltzy for me, that, and because I think it's just lazy. I think it's just lazy script writing.
Yes, because if she was a snitch for Jackie, and Jackie and Damon were working together, and she was, on her, about to get gunned down. I know she's about to get gunned down, so she's texting as quickly as she can, blah, 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 blah. But I'm just sort of like, I don't know. Couldn't you have tipped off Damon a little bit more, like, clearly as to who she is?
How does she know he's not a bad guy?
Well, again, this adds to the complication of this story. It's like, well, she texts Matt Damon the information.
Who did?
Yeah.
See, Jackie. Jackie's the one who texts, because there was no Crime Stopper report. Jackie's the one who texts Damon's character, about the stash house.
But the girl in the house doesn't know that Matt Damon's not a bad guy.
No, she doesn't. But I don't understand why Jackie wouldn't have said to Damon in that text message, stash house, CI lives there. You know what I mean? Like, just, like, she's driving in her car. She could have just done a voice to text note, be like, it unfortunately would spoil the whole plot if she did it that way, and so the tension of only being able to get part of the information out is obviously meant to be part of the fun of this. But it's just when you get to that end result, and Sasha Calle's character is going to get $4 million from this rip, and then he's just like, oh, I just knew you would come through. I'm like, well, you're clearly a snitch. Well, who are you snitching for, and how, and why, and what is going on? Like, there were unanswered questions that I think needed to be fleshed out more than the way they did at the end of that film.
Maybe Damon suspected that she was a snitch to Jackie, but didn't feel he could ask her outright in that environment where he didn't trust his colleagues.
Yeah.
It didn't. Again, that wasn't something that particularly troubled me. And in terms of Jackie not telling him more, well, did she send that text message when she was just about to be shot?
Yes.
Maybe it wasn't the most well thought through text message then when she.
This is a modern equivalent of a plot device that's always seemed a bit ridiculous to me, and that is, the murder victim giving out his last words are a cryptic message.
Yeah.
There's an Agatha Christie book called Why Didn't They Ask Evans? And that's what a murdered man is. He's dying on the rocks, and he says, why didn't they ask Evans? He doesn't say the name of who pushed him off the cliff onto the rocks. And so this is just the modern equivalent of it. So, and it's always been a bit of a flimsy plot device in my book. But
yeah, I guess my main takeaway is that if she was going to be, if Sasha Calle's character was going to be so special and virtuous, I think that ending needed to be that those final conversations where we're learning a little bit more needed to flesh out a little bit more of the connective tissue between everything.
That's the phrase I was going to use. Yeah, absolutely. Because when he said that, I thought, I didn't. When he said, I always knew you were going to do the right thing, I was thinking, well, I didn't. Where have you given me any basis for that consideration?
It's quite possible that people might say that without actually meaning it, but they like the sound of it when they say it. I always knew you'd come through for me.
Yeah.
Does that really mean that you actually really mean that you did? You really mean it when you said it, or you were just saying a nice thing?
Yeah,
but it's possible.
Who knows? But it added to my.
Well, I don't think the film knows.
I don't think it does either. I
think it's just a nice thing of, we're all congratulating ourselves that we've counted the money correctly and none of it's missing.
Yes.
And that felt as if it should be a triumphant moment for me. And I thought, well, of course it was going to be.
Yes.
In the wake of all that triumph, they sort of say, we knew you were a goodie all along, And
I felt it was more like,
I'd sort of zoned out by this time.
When Matt Damon walks past on the phone, the bit you've mentioned already, Luke, and he says something that is clearly intended for her to hear. Yes. And I had no problem with the fact that the viewer also knows he wants her. It felt.
No, I have no problem with that.
That he when he said, "I knew you would come through for us," it's more like I felt that he hoped she would more than he couldn't know that she would, but he hoped she would. Maybe he suspected that she was the snitch to Jackie, and therefore there's some good in her, and my interactions with us up to now seem genuine. So I hope that she'll come through for us because me weeding out the villain, it depends on her being a good person.
No, I can accept that, Steve. I can accept that 100%. And what I would say is as an add-on is in that case the script should have said, Damon's character should have said either I hoped you'd come through or I had a feeling you might come through.
Yeah.
Whereas he says I always knew, and that's very definite. Yeah. And that's just another tweak of the script. It doesn't take any major.
Because what he needed her to trust Roe, who Matt Damon didn't trust.
Yeah.
And the audience already knows that you can't trust Roe because you've already seen Roe send about 50 texts with his phone that he didn't give up. So you're like, well, we already know who. So once again, this is where it's like, well, all right, we already know that when she's confiding in Roe, she's confiding in the wrong person, which deflates any tension there. You're like, well, I already know that, and Matt clearly onto him, which is why this is going on.
But that's if you assume Roe's texting bad guys rather than texting people who are trying to. He might think that Matt Damon is the bad guy, so therefore he's texting the good guys.
Neither one of us thought that. As in, me and my wife, when we were watching it, we were like, okay, well, he's clearly the bad guy. He's not texting his friends. He's not texting the police. He's not texting the chain of command. If he was texting the chain of command, he would make a call to the superior officer and be like, some shit's going, because Ben Affleck's character kind of does that. That's sort of where he's, he does that with Chandler a little bit. I mean, like Kyle Chandler's character, he's like, oh, this shit's going down and this is all off, and I'm but and that's obviously some misdirects because they're trying to get in somewhere. But yeah, it was just, and again, maybe it's because he did the different numbers to different people, and he was. In every scene that was going on, it was clearly he didn't trust Roe, and Roe was the only one who didn't give up his burner phone. And it's just like, well, you're already setting things up for me to not trust you. To an extreme, it's like, well, I definitely don't trust you. You're definitely, involved in some way with the in the bad guy plot. It was just, I don't know.
Yeah, and I think this is a case of the wrong villain. I think if it turned out that Roe was on a burner phone, this is typical whodunit territory. If it turned out that Roe was on a burner phone and we knew he was on a burner phone, then I would be saying the script wants you to suspect Roe. And he wants you to think that he's the baddie. That
would be the right twist, and he's not.
And then it turns out he's not. It turns out he is actually going to Central Command.
Yeah.
But Central Command is the villain. And he's double-crossing Roe. That becomes a twist. Whereas the only way this can play out is if you say it's a double bluff. And if it's a double bluff, it doesn't work because it's not complex enough.
I didn't assume that he was the bad guy. And I thought the only thing, again, this is the assumptions you bring into a movie. The only time I've ever seen him on screen, he's been playing good guys. So that kind of playing against type in being
because I didn't know him. So
wait, who are we talking about here?
Stephen Yeun.
Okay, right. Okay, yeah. No, I don't know. To me, it was just like, well, he's the bad guy. Subtlety. For me, there was just a lack of subtlety. This is part of my problem with this movie. I agree that this is like perfect. You described it, Matt, was popcorn fun. It's yes. If you're sitting there on a Friday night, you want to watch something that is. I don't want to go so far as like call it mindless entertainment, but it falls into that camp of like I want to turn my brain off and just watch some nonsense.
It's disposable entertainment. That's what it is.
Yes. Which I think what you've also said earlier, the most disappointing factor of this is that this is a Ben Affleck, Matt Damon starring film. Both of those guys are great. Kyle Chandler is a great actor. Sasha Calle is a great actor. I've not seen the other actors in many things. I don't think that the team, Matt Damon's team, they didn't seem to be giving it their all. It seemed they seemed pretty middling with their performances. And I think that's just down to and we're talking about the women, really. The script for the women had nothing to do. I do remember when they all got into the armored vehicles, and as you said, they drove away, just left them sitting there. I thought they just left the women. Why did they do that? And my wife was like, I think they're waiting for emergency vehicles or something. I don't understand. I was like, and so confused as to why they left them behind. And obviously that was an attempt at like an Ocean's 11 kind of twist, and that is they got away in the convenient car that just happened to be stashed in the in the garage. Whatever. I'll go with it, I guess. But
so when one of them gets, is it again? I'm looking at the cast list.
Salazar
that gets shot.
Yes,
and Numa then sort of kicks into action. And I remember thinking, oh, well, it's nice to see him not just counting money, doing something. And I thought maybe this is going to have a payoff. Maybe the fact that Numa can deal with a bullet wound and is quite sassy while she's doing it, because she's saying, anyone who's not got a bullet in the leg, stop shouting. And I thought that was that was almost a good character moment.
Yes.
I thought maybe she's going to come into, because I quite liked her when she had something to do. I thought Numa was quite entertaining.
Yes.
But
when she wasn't being a Michael Bay knockoff character, otherwise, all of her other scenes feel like a scene from like one of the people in like Con Air. Just like, it struck me as like a character type like that. I'm like, I do something better with these things, with these guys. Come on, with these ladies.
The female characters are really badly served in this.
Yeah. Except for Sasha Calle. I just,
except for Sasha Calle, yeah. She's the best.
Yes. Yes. And she was also the best thing in The Flash. She played Supergirl in The Flash, and she was fantastic in that. The only redeeming thing about that thing.
I want to say, and this is going to highlight an issue that the script has got. I almost want to say you could get rid of all the female characters and not really notice.
Yeah.
But the problem with that, apart from Sasha Calle, but the problem with that is your suspect pool then disappears.
That's what I was going to say. That
So the script hasn't got enough interest in its red herring suspects to make them viable suspects.
Yes.
And the film may be 2 hours long or so, but
go back to your point, Steve. Sorry to interrupt. Go back to your point, Steve. The reason I disrespect Roe is because of all the suspects that weren't Matt Damon and Ben Affleck. He's the only one with any meat on his bones.
Exactly.
So they've invested something in him for a reason.
Yes.
I would have much preferred the female characters to have been diverting me suspicions away from Roe, rather than me saying, I don't need these people at all, which is a really bad failing on a whodunit story. Which essentially this is. I mean, this is, Sorry, Steve, you were saying.
Just that we don't need this film to be any longer. And I feel it does go along at a reasonable pace. So it doesn't really feel like there's much space to flesh out all the other characters. Maybe a much better screenwriter could have done that. But the cost of that is, as you say, that those two women characters, we don't really get. They get a little bit of a speech each, when they're sat there talking about what they would do with the money. But that's about the extent of it. But you need a team for one thing, so you've got suspects, and for one thing, so that it's not just a totally man film.
Yes. Yeah. I agree. I think in terms of like, if we're going to talk restructuring, which we don't need to go to too much depth on that, the entire opening needs to be would need to change. The interview scenes are critical moments where you understand and learn who the characters are. Think about, again, bring up Mission Impossible, the mission scene where Jim Phelps is relaying what the mission is going to be, and then they execute the mission, and then you're starting to learn a little bit about all of the different characters in Jim Phelps' team. You kind of get who Ethan Hunt is, you get who Emilio Estevez is, you get who's Claire is. You understand all these people enough so that once the mission begins, you can then start fleshing out a little bit more. Obviously, they don't do too much with everyone because they all, spoiler alert, they all die really quickly. But you definitely get enough of there's enough meat on all of those characters to feel invested in them to some degree. So it's if they were to remain throughout the film, that starting point was a really good starting point, right?
Yeah.
And I think if you had done that here, rather than do this stupid interview scene that literally went nowhere, and it was really just an excuse for Ben Affleck to fight with his brother's, the character who's playing his brother, that's really all that was serving. I think you could have, started this thing off with the funeral, because they talk about the big fallout of, oh, we got a dead captain. Oh, this is such a big deal. There's no sense of this being a big deal anywhere in this movie.
No, I agree with that, and I agree, Steve. It shouldn't be any longer, by no means. But I think a better scriptwriter would have addressed those issues Luke's just raised, and I think it would have been better for us to see these people working as a team and getting their dynamic that way than the interviews. Because for my money, the interviews don't really serve any purpose other than to show us that is Ben Affleck's brother, so they can have a little buddy moment at the end.
Yes.
And for my, you don't need him to be his brother. That didn't add anything to me.
No.
At all. Didn't need it. He could have just been, I don't know, they've butted heads professionally. It didn't matter for me.
Yeah.
And that whole opening segment could have done more to lay like Luke says, to lay the foundations of who these people are, so that when they become suspects and one of them might be a mole, I'm not looking at one in particular. I'm looking at all of them until I get enough information to make a decision, which is what setting up the suspects in a whodunit is all about. So, yeah, I think it certainly doesn't need to be longer, but I think it could have been changed so that it laid better foundations for itself.
I think you tweak that opening, you amp up their characterizations while they are in the house, and you add more misdirection as to who could be the mole. And honestly, just Matt Damon, he can just be the good guy in the group. He doesn't need to be a suspect. Honestly,
he doesn't need to be a suspect.
He doesn't need to be a suspect. Yes, you can still write it that way, but the way it is portrayed here, I'm like, that was such a waste of time, because you just have this gut instinct. It's like, well, it just seems so obvious that he's not going to be the bad guy, because they've tried too hard to make him look and say things that are bad. It's like, all right.
Yeah, but I did quite like, as a clue, when Kyle Chandler's character says to Ben Affleck, how much more have you got to lose when you've lost everything? Yeah. And he's sort of diverting suspicion. And I thought that would work so much better if Matt Damon was incorruptible.
Yes.
On the surface, because then it would start to, is he too good to be true? That, rather than Matt Damon putting suspicion on himself. Yeah. I think that
on a positive, there was one thing that I thought was a funny payoff, and that was when Kyle Chandler was trying to convince them to come up with a different narrative so he didn't get ousted. And then Ben Affleck is like, dude, I've got you on speaker. That was, I legitimately thought that was a good moment. So I guess I don't hate the movie. I'm being very critical, but this is just who I am.
I thought there was some bits in there that were funny as well. There was when is it Desi, the girl?
Yes.
When Desi's being questioned by Matt Damon, and they're smashing the loft up, and the brick dust, the plaster dust is falling down on top of her as they're talking. Yeah. I mean, it's hard to say that and relay how funny that was, but I thought that was a very funny scene.
I enjoyed that, and I thought
caving in on them, but they were just carrying on as if nothing was happening.
Yeah, and he says something about before the roof caves in on us, or something. He says, doesn't he? And again, going back to the stage play thing, I found that interrogation scene really enjoyable. It was three good actors playing off each other, and nothing else apart from a bit of brick dust. Nothing else to distract from three good performances with some good dialogue. I mean, I don't ask for much.
No,
I just thought that was a good little scene, and I couldn't stop myself thinking, wish it was just people talking for once.
Yeah, because given the talent on screen, that's bound to be the best part of it in a way, isn't it?
Yeah, like I said before, the acting chops to pull off a talky film are here they're here. It's all over the show, but some of it is being wasted in this film in the way that it's been presented.
Yeah. Well, do we have any other comments, any other thoughts we want to get out? Oh, I have one. I gotta say, there were musical cues in this that felt like they just literally inserted stings from Blade Runner 2049. There were moments that I was like, this is literally the way the music in Blade Runner 2049 is going, particularly towards the end. There's moments at the end of the film when there's that sort of, happy kind of happiness, but everything's kind of, ashes and stuff like that's kind of falling down, that they were playing musical stings that were very similar to the bit at the end of 2049 when Ryan Gosling's character is sort of coming to the end of his life on the steps as it's snowing. To the point, I literally it was so similar that I just kept thinking, did they just plug in some of that script, some of that score into this, or what? Because it's a very synth heavy score. It's very very synth heavy, very sort of feels very much inspired by the kind of stuff you get from things like Blade Runner 2049. But yeah, there was a few moments like that I thought, interesting.
The score didn't really make it. I couldn't tell you anything about the score.
I mean, it's generically like techno-y.
Right. It made no impression on me at all.
Yeah.
Same here, and I've watched it twice. I will say I liked. I'm no movie critic really, but I did feel it was lit well. Like that scene in the back of the van, I thought the way the street lights kept coming past, although that's not going to be really realistic, I just like that as an effect that the characters kept coming in and out of darkness, and also even in the house. When there was the talky bits in the house that we have liked. I think there was a bit where Matt Damon, again, I don't think it was the bit with the brick dust, but another talky bit where he's talking to someone a bit later in the film, and he must be moving forward and backwards in his chair under a light and coming in and out of the light, which I also liked. So I thought it was well lit, which a little bit noirish, if you like.
Yes.
Oh yeah. I have, like I say, this was a film that, depending on how you look at it, it either succeeds entirely in what it sets out to do, or it doesn't. And if it's setting out to be a twisty, layered whodunit, then it fails. If it sets out to just take my mind off the real dreadful world for 2 hours, then I'm willing to say it does. I'm willing to say it does.
Well,
that's my summary.
Shall we rate it? All right. Well, we'll rate the film now. So as everyone knows, this little kid had 10 fingers and 10 little toes. We rate all of our films out of 5 Falcons, 1 being the worst and 5 being the best. Steve, as the
3.
guest cinematic sleuth, how many Falcons are you going to give The Rip?
3. With a temptation to even go to 3.5, but I'll go 3.
Fair enough. Matt?
Yeah, I knew what I was going to give this from the minute the end credits rolled, and it's for the very reasons I've just given. It fails on one side, it succeeds on the other, so I go straight down the middle, and it's 3.
Fair enough as well. I'm going to give it 2 Falcons. That was my takeaway. I finished it. I thought, that is 2 Falcons worth of fun. It's hard because when we do the grading scale of things, like there are certain things that are a 3 that are like that are actually really quite fun and quite good, but they fail on certain levels, and this one just sort of I don't know. It would have taken a bit of a rewrite to push this up to a 3, and definitely a 4 for me, but there we are.
I think it depends on which way I look at it. If I'm looking at this as a whodunit, it's a 2, or maybe even a 1.5. But if I look at it as a popcorn bit of romp, then it's a 3.
Yeah,
so
fair enough.
It depends how you view this.
Well, Steve, where can people find you on the internet, should they wish to do so? Because you got books and podcasts out there.
Yeah, well, most social media platforms you can find me. I can't remember what my name is on these various platforms, but you can find the Boxing Movie Podcast is on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. I'm also on Blue Sky, just as Steve Hunt, I think. And and the podcasts are where you will find podcasts. That's the Boxing Movie Podcast, which is basically a podcast about boxing movies. Generally 1 boxing movie per episode, and the brand new podcast, of which there's only been 1 episode so far, is Desert Island Fights, which is obviously going to be strictly for boxing fans, where I will have a guest to talk to me about if they could only salvage 5 classic fights to watch on a hypothetical desert island, what would they be? And that has been great fun so far. So yeah, that's me.
Wonderful. Well,
good stuff.
Thank you.
Find Steve anywhere you can, and as always, we will be back next time with another investigation. So in the meantime, take care walking down those mean streets.